Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. The next allegation that I would like to refute, and this allegation has frequently been leveled against proponents of indefinite life, is that if eternal human longevity ever becomes available, it would become available only to the wealthy, and this would create an elite of unprecedented proportions, since the wealthy would not only have an advantage in resources that they do now, they would also be immortal, whereas everybody else would be mortal, and their immortality would give them more experience and a greater ability to collect even more resources. Well, I believe this is an extremely implausible scenario. First of all, in refuting this scenario, I'm going to assume that these cures for human diseases and other bodily perils are going to be available on a relatively free and open market. They're not going to be rationed or distributed by the state to people who are favored by the state, and only to those people. If the state did control the distribution of these cures, then we might get an elite. It wouldn't be an elite of the wealthy, it would be an elite of the politically favored, as we get under socialized medicine today. So, in a free market, however, this wouldn't happen. What happens in a free market has been described by Ray Kurzweil with regard to the adoption of many kinds of technologies, including computer technologies, other household implements, means of transportation. What happens is the first stage of a technology is one in which the technology is very expensive, very unreliable, and indeed only available to the wealthiest few, the people who are actually willing to put forth the tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars required to experiment with this new plaything. Now, later on, however, as the customer base for this technology expands, and as its creators and others who enter the field figure out more effective ways and cheaper ways to manufacture it, the technology becomes more widely available. It now is priced in such a manner that the middle class can afford it. It might still be fairly expensive, and it might still be a little bit less reliable than people would want, but it would be more broadly available. And then, ways to mass produce these new devices come about, and increased competition comes into the field, which of course places a premium on higher quality products at lower prices. So now the products become very affordable, and quality goes up, they become more reliable. And the final stage that these technologies reach, as we've seen with many computer programs and internet-related applications, is that they become virtually ubiquitous and virtually free. Think about how much you're paying for your email access right now. It used to be fairly expensive. In the 1990s, you would have paid $30 or $40 a month for a few megabytes of email storage. Now they're virtually free, and the storage you get is functionally unlimited. So, the same will occur with cures for various diseases. Certainly it's very costly these days to develop a new drug or a new treatment procedure. It would be probably less costly under a fully free market, where the FDA wouldn't exist to require a litany of overly stringent tests, but nonetheless, there would be some kind of expense associated with it. And naturally, the first few customers of these treatments are going to be people who can afford them, namely the very wealthy. But this initial stage is quite necessary for the technology to develop and essentially diffuse to the rest of the population. These wealthy individuals who are trying out the technologies at first are actually taking on a fairly extraordinary level of risk. What if the treatments go wrong? Now, if your iPod goes wrong, you don't lose very much. You might be down a few $100s. And if it's the newest version of the iPod, you might be disappointed. You were expecting something that would work and that would give you all of these new functions, and now you don't have it. But if it's a treatment for a disease, it might even backfire. It might not even be that reliable, and those wealthy few clients might actually suffer greatly. So they're not at all as highly privileged as most people assume they are. Indeed, their experience in trying out these products first is integral for quality products to come to the rest of us. Because, let's say a particular treatment fails for some reason, well, the scientists, the doctors, the inventors who have been developing it are going to learn something from it, and are going to try to make sure that it doesn't happen again. So, yes, there may be an initial stage in which the wealthy will be the first beneficiaries of these new technologies. But also, think about who these wealthy people would be. It probably wouldn't be the healthy wealthy people. It would be the ill ones, the ones with currently terminal diseases, say cancer, or Alzheimer's, or certain kinds of diabetes. So, wouldn't it be beneficial for these people to live instead of dying? That's not asking for very much. That's not asking for them to control society. That's just asking for them to live. Isn't it a tragedy when any human being dies, no matter what his net worth is? So, surely it's perfectly justified for the wealthy to be the first people to try these things out. And those of them who do have my profoundest respect. I probably would not want to be one of the first people to try out these therapies. Of course, if I were terminally ill, I would have no choice. Anything is better than nothing. And probably many of these wealthy people would be thinking the same. So, quite the contrary. There's not going to be an elite that results from indefinite human life extension. Rather, there will be a group of pioneers that pave the way for the rest of us. And eventually, these treatments and technologies will be at least as ubiquitous as aspirin is today. Eventually, we will all be able to get cheap, high-quality treatments that will extend our lifespans astronomically, at least compared to how miserably short they are today.